for your business, one of the best ways to consistently do so is to create content. I mean, everyone's been telling you that, right? Unfortunately, it's a lot easier said than done. Well, in today's show, we'll hear the story of a local executive search firm that's done a great job of consistently creating content, and we'll hear how it's affected their business. Our guest is Aaron Schneider of the Petenwell Group. He'll tell us all about his 2-minute interview program. It's really well done. It looks great, and it's working. Hopefully, it'll teach you something and inspire you to create some content too. Welcome to the Idea Collective Live, the official weekly meeting of small business owners everywhere. I'm your host, Pat Miller, the Idea Coach. This show is live and it's across the Idea Coach Network. And if you're on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, make sure you hit subscribe because we want to make sure that we can get the show out to you on a weekly basis. Also, our chat is unified. So if you have an idea or a comment or a sarcastic remark, drop it into the chat. We would love to have you be a part of the show today. Thank you so much to our sponsors. We could not do it without them. Bank 59, Kwik, Serendipity Labs, and of course, the Idea Collective collaboration community for small business owners. Now, later in the show, we're going to tell you how you can get a free year in the Idea Collective thanks to Bank 59. We're also going to count down to the opening day of baseball, 11 days left, and have some fun with the Kwik after party. So we got lots to do. Let's get to it. Our guest today is Aaron Schneider, the managing director at Petenwell Group, an executive search and recruiting firm here in Milwaukee. He is also the host of the 2-minute interview video podcast. Now, Aaron is an industry-leading consultant and hiring expert. He's got the experience to build your teams, find the great people, and improve your culture. So, Aaron, it's great to see you again, my friend. How have you been since last time we talked?
Yeah, Pat, I've been good. I appreciate all the kind words. It's very nice of you to introduce me that way. And it's good to sit down and talk with you, even if we're not in the same room.
Yeah, I know. It's weird that it's all this pandemic, Zoom, internet weirdness. But last time we had the chance to talk, we were on the set of the 2-minute interview, a great looking content marketing podcast that you host. If someone hasn't seen the show, tell us about the 2-minute interview. What is it?
Yeah, so it's a short format vlog, right? So it's video content that lives mainly right now on LinkedIn. Originally, I was going to live on a lot more different platforms, and maybe we'll get into that. But the content itself is taking where in an interview, I'd be actually had a really great opportunity to interview a lot of great executives across the Milwaukee area. And the idea kind of first started, it was like, boy, it'd be kind of fun to share this experience with other people. Like, instead of just being in a coffee shop, what if we gave it to the internet? And then I thought, well, some of these interviews are 2 hours long. I can't do that. So you mesh the two ideas down to 2 minutes, one question of a really, really high profile executive. In a lot of cases could do a lot in 2 minutes. So it's worked out really well.
That's great. So let's talk about how you got there. Was creating the 2-minute interview something you wanted to do or something that you needed to do? Tell us how it came to be.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it did start out of a want. I wanted to do something. Having that really great interaction with somebody, be like, I could share this with other people. It'd be a really great content for just a general marketplace to see. And for me, I kind of wanted to have that internet presence. I had already done quite a bit of that face-to-face coffee, lunches, trying to stay in touch with clients. And obviously the mail marketing was something I could do as well. And getting pieces of mail out to people was, old school. It still has a place in marketing. But I didn't have anything in inbound marketing. And as the process kept going, I started to realize this is something I need. I need to be doing this. And what was just going to kind of be maybe a couple of videos here and there is now turned into almost a weekly routine where content's being released. And it is now a major need. It's a budgetary shift for sure, because now we have to keep that going. But it's really paid dividends, and it took some time to get to that point. But I'm glad that I'm making an investment. I would say it's under the need category now.
And that's an interesting transition where it goes from something that you're going to try, and now it's something in the need category. Has that been tough to get used to? And more to the point, what did you see that moved it from the want to the need category?
Right. The results definitely made it into the need. And so last year would have probably been the first year during that pandemic. I'm in my second year of running the 2-minute interview. And you look at it in the budget and you're like, hey, I'm not sure business is going to be a little flat this year. Do I really want to invest in this? And as the year went on, I was like, yes, I need to do this. And I was actually doing episodes during the pandemic, doing fresh episodes and keeping the content very, up to date. And the results were starting to come back like, hey, people were still watching this. And obviously we had a little increase in interest in online content last year. So maybe I benefited a little bit in that area. But that it went hand in hand. The more I invested down that path of inbound marketing, and I do see that content as that space to kind of come alongside of my potential client that might be just looking for those topics I'm talking about naturally and take them on a little bit of a journey, even if it's just 2 minutes, has had some traction for me.
Now, being an executive search, have you found that this show is better to reach the executives or the people you're searching for, or both? What has been the kind of result of doing this show?
Right. It has been twofold. So it's generated more traffic in general, just about interest about our firm, about the Petenwell Group and what we do. So we're in a human capital space, kind of the broader thing. We're definitely more focused on helping the right person get into organizations that fit within their company, that fit certain pieces of the culture that are there, and then also identifying like the certain motives that help it, the hiring process along to know is somebody actually going to fit inside the organization. So on both sides, I can talk about those things within the 2-minute interview by having key industry experts talk about these things and their experiences. So a candidate might see it as, wow, that's a really buttoned up, a really good approach to this for me to make a change to a job. In a lot of cases, that's a lot of anxiety along that. I like the approach that Aaron and his team have. And for my clients, this is a way for them to kind of have what does it look behind the scenes, right? What does it really look like in their office? Like, what are the questions they actually ask in an interview? What do these guys look like, and how do they operate? So for me, it actually works on both sides.
That sounds great. So if you're just tuning in, we're talking with Aaron Schneider, founder of the Petenwell Group, and we're talking about the 2-minute interview content marketing platform that he has, and it's really well done. And we're going to get into some questions here on how maybe you can start doing marketing just like this for your business, as we learn from what Aaron learned along the way. So if you have questions, go ahead and drop it into the chat, and we will bring you into the conversation as well. So how did you settle on the format of just 2 minutes? Why not the 20-minute interview or the 8-minute interview? I mean, 2 minutes sounds good, but why 2 minutes?
Yeah, and Pat, it makes me pull up my hair now that I settled on 2 minutes. I can't tell you. It's a really good thing. I think that it is targeted at 2 minutes. It was hard. I kind of looked at the marketplace as I was doing this, and there's some really good similar content on long format interviews. I mean, you can even look at your nightly TV shows. Like, there's interviews all the time. Lead to something. And
sorry about that. I think we had one of your cameras dropped out. So you were saying looking around to some of the long form interviews that were there.
There were similar things, but they were that longer format where that, somebody would have maybe even similar to this. You have to have your audience really well dialed into your content and what you're going to provide to get them on something that might be 50 minutes long. So my goal here was to narrow it down to something that might be more reach a broader audience. So having something that's only 2 minutes, even labeling it that, allow people to know that, hey, this is only going to take 2 minutes of my time. If you title it the right way, you might take people on a journey that really for them is like a little small investment of their time.
So let's talk about living inside that constraint. You mentioned that makes you pull your hair out sometimes. I'm very sensitive to that phrase for obvious reasons, because I've had a lot of frustration in my life, as you can see. But the shorter format video, does that make more work? Does it make it easier, more editing, more scripting? What is it like to live inside those constraints?
Yeah, and it was a focus of mine, knowing that I was going to kind of select this title and then kind of narrow myself down to 2 minutes. And a little bit of me knew that this is probably going to be a lot more editing, a little more work. But I went into it with a sense of efficiency, like where can we use some content in multiple places and things like that. And the problem is it does end up being a lot more content, or a lot more editing, a lot more looking at the same material. If you take one interview session and try to break it all apart, each of those components are going to obviously need to be edited as well. But that leads to more watches, more people interested, and more people connecting with it. you have to find a way to use it in multiple ways so it's worth your time and energy. And really the biggest frustration has just been that the content's so good sometimes that the questions take 4 minutes to get an answer. And it's like, I don't want to tell this guest that I'm going to chop up their answer, but I don't want to sell false hopes either and say, well, here's a 2-minute interview and there's a 5-minute, video. So we do try to stay between 2 and 3.5 minutes for each one of the episodes.
Have you been tempted to do a series of interviews from an interview that was just so good you couldn't just do the one episode?
Busted. You totally know I'm busted right there. So I did it once. I did a part 1 and a part 2. With the format, the way it is, and releasing on something like LinkedIn doesn't work so well. It would probably do really well on, if it was even Facebook or YouTube. But for me, I just know on LinkedIn, it hasn't quite worked that well. We have labeled, had the opportunity to do a really great interview with Beth Ridley. And some of the stuff was just, it led right into one question, right to another. I'm like, everybody's going to want this. And both were, really well received, but they were on 2 different dates and people watched them out of order. So yeah, I made my own path. I got to stick with the 2-minute version.
So for folks that are watching, there's a lot that you're doing exceptionally well. And I think you've got a really cool position, the 2-minute interview. You're making a great promise with the viewer before they even click play. You're setting up a constraint to drive creativity. And another thing that I think you do exceptionally well is you're not shooting this show in the basement of the YMCA. You've got a really cool set. How did you find it? And why did you decide to shoot where you shoot?
See, I didn't know if we were going to get into some of the secret sauce, but I'll let you have this one. So I knew of this place for a while, and I would recommend that people even consider when they're shooting some of their stuff that, get out of your office, or if your office isn't, well lit or has the right pieces to make it look professional. It's a kind of a simple thing you can do. Even just doing a step and repeat like you have, Pat, I think really changes the feel. If you don't have all the pieces right away. It takes a little more lighting work, but I shot just about every episode at the Hyatt in the top. Like, it used to be a Rotunda restaurant, and now it's just a kind of a conference room space that the Hyatt rents out downtown Milwaukee. And obviously the views are great, and it's 360 degrees, so you can look out west as far as you can see to the horizon, or you can look out to the lake. Obviously all the downtown buildings. And that was intentional too. We have the scroll effect with everything on social media, and you have to have that eye-catching thing. And I think that was something that helped me launch within, just kind of a very fast-scrolling environment. It's like, well, wait a second, that background looks kind of catchy. Let me check that video out. So I was intentional about that. I did learn along the way the different tricks in the lighting. So there's some of this stuff within the 2-minute interview that I drove that I was kind of this decision maker. There was other things I definitely appreciated, hiring certain contractors to come in and take it to that next level. Like I said, just previously, as we were talking about, it's like, it is an investment now. It is in the need category for our firm. And those kind of decisions are made that way.
And I think the thing that we can all learn from this is, if we put all of our time into the content, that's important, but we have to capture the attention, and we have to look like we know what we're talking about, especially when video is involved. So lighting is important, audio is important, setting is important. It has to have that striking nature where the graphics look great and you're really just looking pro level, and then you earn the chance to have the conversation. If you think you're going to stop people scrolling just by being smart, they won't be able to tell how smart you are in the first 15 seconds that they'll give you. You have to look pro quality from the minute that they click the video. And I think you've just done an outstanding job of that. Have you found that high quality look and professional feel has helped you get bigger and better guests as you've gone along?
Yeah, it has. And the next few episodes I'm really excited for. I didn't expect right out the gate to be able to get some of the best people in town to speak. And I had some really good guests I was excited about. And that has led into other conversations where my guests are even starting it. I've had in the last, I really lost track now. And I would say it comes up about a couple times a month where people reach out to me either through their marketing departments or just on their own, have said, hey, could you consider me for the 2-minute interview? So that is that feedback that we're talking about. Is like, clearly this is working when I see somebody that's high profile in town and they want to be on an episode or share their story or whatever it is. And so that's been fun. But just to that point too, to kind of go back, I think when you get started, something like this in the marketing space, you'll find a lot that are just getting going, and that's wonderful. And if it's working for you, that's where I said it became a need. I'm like, okay, let's change the budget on this. Let's bring in some help, especially with audio and lighting, and get it to that next level. And now the return is better guests, more eyes watching, and so on.
Yeah. If you're trying to create content and you'd like to learn from Aaron, drop into the chat. We'd love to entertain your question because he's built something that's working well for the business, and he's figured a lot of stuff out. So if there's something you want to know, we'd love to include your questions in the chat. Just drop it in and we'll include it if we have time. So what have you learned about distributing content on LinkedIn? Any tips or pros and cons, or how have you gotten better at using LinkedIn as time moved forward?
Yeah, and I'll be one in the LinkedIn space that I would have said, even prior to 2019, I was a LinkedIn user. I was pretty good at LinkedIn, and I felt like, man, I know it. Boy, did I not know it. I didn't. I was just kind of a casual user. I would say I used it for maybe a little bit of research and sending some messages here and there. And there's another level to that platform that I think you only get to if you really become a consumer. Like if you really get into how the content lives and seeing how the community uses LinkedIn. And the logarithms are there. They help you or they could hurt you in a lot of cases, but you really don't understand them until you use them. And maybe it's not you yourself or someone on your staff, or if you're going to have a company come alongside you and help you produce some of the content, you really have to know how that community uses LinkedIn before you can really say you're distributing content on there. So interaction for LinkedIn is not just so much posting, it's how do you interact with the community as well. So we required my profile, which contains most of our content. Also, my profile needs to reach out to other people, connect with them, start conversations, have them find my material. And that's kind of that two-way street that has to happen. And I think your content gets better too. So if you're scripting your content, which you should be, if you're coming to any interview, or if you're just doing your own personal blog, I highly recommend looking at your script, having other people review it, going through it and being on the same page before you hit record. But taking that material and making sure that it fits within the community as well is so important. And you only get there if you're actually in it. And it doesn't have to be every day, but you have to frequently be using the LinkedIn platform and getting into the content that's there.
Let's go deeper on that. You're the second person that I know and have a ton of respect for in the last week that has underscored how important it is to be a good fan and engagement advocate on LinkedIn, not just good at someone that's publishing. What is your daily habit on engaging with content on LinkedIn? How do you go about it?
Right. I have to kind of schedule everything with LinkedIn because there is that factor of, I got sucked in and I want to do too much. So I actually have just 3 days a week where I actually spend hours on LinkedIn, and there's 2 that I don't, and that's intentional too. So the day that I post something, I just made okay, that's posted. I don't go back for a good portion of time because it takes some time for it to get going anyways. And I don't want to muddy in that and then also suck away a whole workday trying to get it off the ground, because some of it isn't, you can't control the logarithm completely. Sometimes it's connected to your guest. So you kind of have to figure out what works for your audience. And it's really important to know what your audience is, both in your marketplace, but then also on your LinkedIn place. And then once you know that, then you can kind of figure out what days of the week are going to work best for you to post content. When is the right time to dive in and start making comments? So I don't do it every day. I do it about 3 days a week. And in some cases, it makes sense to reply back to every comment that's hot. Like if you get 2 or 3 people commenting on something, get back to them right away. If you have certain people that are influencers in your network and you see them posting stuff, you kind of find their rhythm too, and you want to reply to some of the stuff, but not all of the stuff. You got to figure out what works for you, who you want to tag with it, and mesh it together. And obviously, we could spend hours and hours just talking about LinkedIn, but the best way is just to get in there and experience it and work within the medium so that you know what's going to work for your business. I don't think everybody should be on LinkedIn, but some of us really need to be. I think that the professional needs to be in the top of mind space. If they know that that's part of their marketing strategy, it's just like, hey, we need to be top of mind even when we're not talking to our customers. it can be a really great thing, because you'd be surprised how many people are just poking through LinkedIn. And if you got good content, it's going to show up in their feed. And then, hey, maybe they didn't call you that day, but they remember the content you made.
Well, seeing how we're live on LinkedIn right now, hi, I'm Pat Miller, the Idea Coach, and we're talking with Aaron Schneider about the 2-minute interview for the Petenwell Group. If you have questions about how he built this micro content and how he's supporting this for his business, drop it in the chat and we'll include it in the conversation. And that can be happening right now on the LinkedIn profile that you're watching this video on. Just drop it right there. We'll see it and we'll include it. A question from Michael Rampola, Aaron. What is your pre-interview process to improve the quality of your conversation and the outcome?
Yeah, so go back. The first thing would be to scripting. You can do so much more to kind of add flavor with lighting and audio, but if your content's not good, I don't think that you're going to really make up for it with a really amazing backdrop like this Milwaukee skyline. So you want to start with that. You want your content to come out well. And for me, that's, getting to know the guest. Most of them I've known pretty well. Some I've had to get to know through the process, and we've had to set up multiple phone calls, and we go through the questions that we want to ask, and I give each guest the space to write their own answers. With the, hey, by the way, if you can keep this under 2 minutes, I can show more of the answer to this question. And in some cases, it does go beyond what we're aiming for. But if we didn't script that, we'd have no shot at all of having that happen. So a good question. I highly recommend scripting and getting your content good. And then maybe step 2, 3, and 4, get into, okay, what's the location? Do I need audio help? Do I need lighting help? And work from there.
So what advice do you have for someone that's trying to decide if they should start doing a show like this or creating content on a regular basis? What would you tell them?
Yeah, it goes back to what inspired me. It's a good question. I think that there's more people out there that have really good content to put up, and they're not. So the first step is just to get your first piece going. I guarantee it's going to look different over time. It's all going to evolve. The 2-minute interview absolutely evolved. I even took down the first 2 that I posted because they just don't fit what I have now. And trust me, there's a lot of people that say in your SEO world, don't take content down even if it's up there. So I know, hey, but I took it down because it doesn't fit. It didn't really fit the feel that we have now. Doesn't fit the brand that we have now. But I will tell you, just getting that first one up and going through that whole cycle of whether it's writing and scripting content, to finding a location, to figuring out if you can do it with your phone or not, which a lot of cases you can, to if your audio on your computer will work. Like, you just feel all those things out and you post it and you're like, boy, I wonder what this is going to look like. And maybe nobody's going to watch it anyways because you're new. And that's where it all starts. You got to get that first piece up and get it out there. And, maybe you don't even have the follow-up figured out yet. Just going through that process is going to help you figure out the follow-up and how you're going to direct, whoever's working with you. The next, hey, we needed to have this right last time, but we don't now. So that first piece is just so valuable in learning, where you're going to go with the follow-up, because that is really the pay dirt. If you just do one and you judge it on that, you're not, trust me, you're never going to be satisfied with the first thing anyways. You just have to get that first one going and then allow it to evolve and keep going until you hit your rhythm. And now for me, it's a routine. It's scheduled out. It's part of a routine. And that's the only reason it happens.
Got a question here from Van Nutt. He's curious about the routine. How long is the typical process of acquiring the guest, getting the questions done, shooting, producing, distribution? What is the cycle like for you?
Yeah, at first I thought it was going to be a lot quicker. So that's a good question. I thought in a lot of cases we could just, a couple weeks out, schedule some people. And I've had to contract a few different videographers in town and work through that process. So, you might have somebody booked and then all of a sudden you get your guests. So I've actually had to kind of spread it out to really looking at about 4 times a year that I can say are good recording times. And then once we finish one, we're looking right now we're working on setting up the next recordings. And for people that are busy, it's not uncommon to have to book something a month out. Even like for this, Pat, we probably this about a month ago. Was that about right?
That's about right.
Yeah. And it was easy. It was easy for us to find a date or two. Sure, we wanted it sooner, but it gave us time to breathe. We got this, hopefully our content's good, right? Well, we get good content for everybody today, and it leads to things. So the more time you give it to breathe, the probably better anyways. Yeah, so I'm not shooting this every week. Definitely looking at booking a room or a space for a whole day and doing, one day we could probably do anywhere from 15 to 25 episodes, to be honest.
So if you had the moment yet where someone's like, hey, you're the guy from the thing, like, does video work that way? Have you had that happen?
Yeah. So that's, I think we kind of touched on that. How do you know if it's working? I had the idea of the 2-minute interview spawned right in the beginning about like, hey, this fits my career. I interview a lot of really interesting people. I think other people might want to be a part of this to like, hey, I can't post a 60-minute interview. And running into people that would say, hey, I saw your post about something. I was like, okay, well, I didn't even know you were on LinkedIn. So now, fast forward to doing this for almost 2 years. And now I'm actually hearing that feedback where I'm like, I watched one of your interviews. I'm like, well, that's great. Which one? And sometimes they even remember the content, which is like great. But other times they just remember that I was in it. And they connected, I branded it separate, and it's part of the Petenwell Group. But in general, it's hand in hand and built through my personal brand, and that works. And I do hear that. I go almost anytime, if we had real networking events, I'd be very interested. How many people would stop me now and just say, hey, I saw one of your videos. It's pretty high. It's amazing how many times people mention it.
I never thought of it this way before. Your job is to go find high-performing people amongst the crowd, right? You're almost in the job of boiling down the available talent. And the 2-minute interview does the exact thing. You sit down with really smart people and get the best 2 minutes they got, and you put it out there. It almost reinforces your value statement as the finder of great people and puts you on LinkedIn with great people in a 2-minute format. So it's brilliant what it's done. So we're almost out of time, but I want to have some more educational opportunities here for the folks that are watching. So what's something that kind of failed, it didn't work the way that you expected, or a challenge that you had to overcome that you didn't see when you first started?
Yeah, I think when you get into video and putting all that stuff together, you run into, okay, well, this editing thing takes longer. It doesn't quite look right. Things I ended up needing, like just for us, we've decided to put the captions on all of our videos because so much play is muted. It was those kind of things we ran into, and those challenges we had to figure out along the way. And those were the little failures that we could get better on. But I kind of touched on this too. Like, it's on YouTube. I thought it would be something that would really kind of play well. YouTube allows a lot of SEO type of opportunities, and I thought the topics would be good. And there's just no traction there. And it's kind of a holding ground for content right now. It's there, but it's taken off on LinkedIn, and I'm not complaining about that. I'm really happy for that. I just haven't figured out, like, do I want to continue to invest in that YouTube channel and go that direction? So that's a lesson that I'm learning right now, but I would say, hey, that right now it kind of falls in that failure. Like, we've spent time developing that YouTube channel, and that's valuable too, time and money.
Yeah, the YouTube mystery, it changes all the time. And if you can figure it out, good for you. But for someone like yourself to have traction on LinkedIn, that probably has helped the business. Looking at where you were when you started it and where you are now, has the business grown because of the 2-minute interview?
Right. Yeah. And we have to factor in the pandemic effect. It was such a flat year. I was happy to finish last year kind of on the even keel that I thought, like, hey, I just don't want to have a nosedive in business. And so I was really happy that we did that. I think a lot of that was attributed to the 2-minute interview. Much more looking forward to this year and what's taking off already. January and February have been good. And it's an icebreaker now too. So the content has to live in multiple places. So it didn't work on YouTube, but just knowing that I can actually put this in a newsletter now, and people will have much more better chance of clicking on it through that. That is the thing that, if this wasn't working, we wouldn't be talking, Pat, and it wouldn't be leading to other things, right? We would just be like, oh, it was a really cool idea, but this one's working. I think it has to fit your personal business. Like, I interview people, and maybe I have an advantage, like recruiting people or getting people to take my phone call is, what I'm paid to do. So getting somebody, an executive on a phone call to say, hey, will you join me on the 2-minute interview is comfortable for me. I can do that. And it might not always work the same format for everybody. Do the interview thing. There's a lot of really great just single person vlogs that have resonated within their industry. And And I floated like this idea to somebody else the other day about like, if I was in copier sales, I don't know if I would sit and do interviews with my clients, but I know like copier sales people still exist. And I imagine they have like crazy stories about being in the field still and driving around and getting lost and all this stuff. That might be really interesting content for your customer or just whoever your LinkedIn or your YouTube audience might be.
Well, I have to tell you, I've been on a lot of interviews. I've been on video interviews, podcast interviews, written interviews, in studios. Aaron's process is top notch. It's fantastic. The process pre-guest, on the day of the shoot was easy. It came out looking great. We'll have to find the link to the one that I was on and put it in the chat and put it into the comments because it was a terrific episode. Like I really enjoyed doing it. So your process is amazing. And that's why I wanted to have you on the show because you've learned the hard way of how this works and what we need to do to be successful. And congratulations on the success. Is there anything else about the 2-minute interview that you want to share?
Yeah, let me add just one more thing that I did a couple months in. And I think it's important to look at LinkedIn in two different ways. And there's a lot of people that will spend their time just getting connections and trying to build through just a lot of awareness of their content, right? So I have 3,000 people I'm connected to, so there's that much more likely than the person with 200 that is actually going to see this. That might not lead you down the path you want to go. So going back to that point of knowing your audience, like I really felt like I needed to target business in Wisconsin. And it was hard, but I went through my LinkedIn connections and I pared it down a little bit. I didn't want, every content I ever had, especially if some of these people were just not in my target audience anymore. And it was hard, but I narrowed it down, and I can say now that right now, like having the contacts that I have on LinkedIn are mainly within my target audience. And when I see interactions now, I can actually put more value in the analytics that LinkedIn gives me. Like it says that, so-and-so or number of people have actually seen it. I know that that's actually people I want to have see it are seeing it. So that would be the one other thing I would share with people, that if you're looking at our interview pad about what is a takeaway, if you're on the LinkedIn platform, look at your contacts. Maybe if you really want to be serious about the marketing thing, make sure you're getting good analytics. Obviously the logarithm is going to work better if you have a lot of people, so you got to pick and choose a little bit. But I think there's a lot of value to just knowing your audience very well on LinkedIn.
Well, you're doing a great job with it. And it's great to see you again, Aaron Schneider, Managing Director of Petenwell Group. Thanks for coming on today and sharing your expertise.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was an honor.
It's our pleasure. Well, there you go, kids. That's how we create great content and distribute it to accomplish your business goals. Aaron's a great guy. And when you meet him in person, it's like, oh, Aaron, nice to meet you. And then you see him on camera. And it's like, oh, hey, here's studio TV host and he's doing the thing. He's got this game down. So if you're interested in asking him more questions, I would encourage that you connect with him on LinkedIn because he's really got it figured out. And I'm really grateful for his time today because hopefully you picked up something in the interview. All right. So here's what we're going to do. In a few moments, we're going to step off to the Kwik Trip after party and we hang out. We're going to exchange notes. We're going to see how we're doing to start off the week, maybe make some new connections that you don't have right now. So a little bit of networking, a little bit of fun. It's the Kwik Trip after party. So stop by as soon as this show ends. We're going to put the link into the chat right now so you can join us. But before we go there, we've got some announcements for the Idea Collective because we want you to see what we're doing later on this week. Thursday morning, we are going to do the Idea Collective Town Hall. Now, if you're inside the Idea Collective collaboration community, about once a quarter, I'll do a town hall where I give you the State of the Union, some new fresh features that we're going to launch inside the Idea Collective. We have a new way to not only invite new members, but raise money for charity that I'm going to unroll. We've got a new show that I'm going to announce that I'm so scared to announce. I can't even say it out loud, but it's going to be awesome. And it's going to spread the word of the Idea Collective everywhere, and some other changes that are coming up. So we're really doubling down on our content and our investment inside the Idea Collective, and we are really excited for that. So join us Thursday morning at 9 a.m. if you're inside the Idea Collective collaboration community. And if you're not, let's talk about Bank 59. Our friends at Bank 59 are still offering a free year in the Idea Collective if you are a member of Bank 59. So if you're walking around right now working with Bank 59, come on, let's go. Get in the Idea Collective. If you're not, hit the link that's on the screen, start the conversation with them, and they will give you a 12-month membership inside the group. It's a great partnership, and we are very grateful to them for working with us. The other thing that we're excited about, we're having fun for the sake of fun. Now, you see something online and you're like, I don't know. Is this like a scam? What's going on? No, this is just fun for the sake of fun. Opening day is coming, 11 days away. And what does the opening day of baseball season mean? Yeah, baseball, but the end of winter. Thank the Lord. So we're counting down to opening day, and we're giving away a tailgating grill, a little smoky, little Weber tailgating grill for next time we're in the parking lot, and a $50 gift card to Kwik Trip. Think of all the damage you could do with a $50 Kwik Trip gift card. I mean, you could go buy your favorite ice cold drink of choice, $50 at Kwik Trip. So stop by Kwik Trip, get the goodies, pick up the Little Weber smoky grill. We're giving those away. And all you got to do is hit that link that's on the screen and put your name in the box. It's really that simple. I mean, that's it. There's no catch. It's just fun for the sake of fun. And we want you to play along with us as we get ready for opening day, because it's going to be really cool. All right. So thank you to Aaron Schneider for joining us from the Petenwell Group. A big shout out to Jennifer Buchholz, who's producing the call. She's the ultimate business connector and my business BFF. She's working hard behind the scenes to make sure that we don't fall flat on our face. So thank you, JB. We appreciate it. And thank you to Bank 59, Serendipity Labs, and Kwik Trip for making this possible. We're off to the Kwik Trip after party. Hit the link. Come on by. Say hello. You might just meet your next new business ally in the after party. I'm Pat Miller. This is the Idea Coach Network and Idea Collective Live. We'll see you next